The curse was lifted off your family line in a court you cannot see. A chain dropped before you walked into this room. Not the chain you forged with your own decisions. Not the small one that came from last week's failure. The older one. The inherited one. The one that has been clasped to your wrist since the day you were born into a name you did not choose. Stay here a little longer. Right now, before this short message ends, I'm going to show you why the heaviness on your shoulders has been borrowed all along. And I'm going to lay in your open palm one short sentence from an old letter I had carried to a tired group of villagers in the hill country of an ancient region. A sentence built to hush, in this very hour, the suspicion you have been carrying that some old document with your family name on it still has any standing against you. The chain that ran through your family ends in my hand. The hand has already let go. I see you. The version of you the rest of the week sees has not been the version I have been watching. I have been watching the smaller one inside, the one who has been wondering for years whether the heaviness she carries is somehow built into the bone. A daughter is sitting at the kitchen table reading a doctor's note that names a condition 3 generations of women in her family have died with. A son is pulling into the driveway of a house he swore he would never own. And the keys in his hand feel exactly like the keys his father used to drop on exactly that kind of table. A young woman has been opening her mouth in arguments and hearing her grandmother's voice come out, and the hearing has been frightening her. A grandfather is watching his adult son repeat the same patterns the grandfather thought he had cut away in his own youth. And the watching is breaking something quiet inside him. There is one of you reading these words who has been calling the heaviness personality because no one ever taught you it could be lifted. None of those rooms is hidden from me. Each one is held in a mercy older than the family that handed you the pattern. I am not annoyed at how long this conversation has taken to arrive. A tenderness rises in me instead. Carriers in your line who passed the weight forward did so mostly without meaning to. A word was spoken over a child once, and that child's body learned to obey it. That child grew up and spoke the same word, unaware, over the next child. So a chain was passed the way silverware is passed. Wrapped in a soft cloth, set in a drawer, never examined, just inherited. I have been standing at the door of that drawer for a long while, not to scold the carriers, but to ask if today might be the day I am finally allowed to open it. Press the back of one hand into the palm of the other for a slow breath. Light pressure, the knuckles of one resting against the soft inner pad of the other. The way 2 old friends grip wrists across a table to seal a thing being agreed on. Breathe slowly through the nose for a count of 3. Feel your fingers warming where the 2 surfaces meet. That small contact is older than any spoken language. It is the gesture 2 human beings have made for one another whenever something heavy was about to be set down between them. The hand under your hand right now is not only your other hand. It is the gesture I am making against the place in you that has been wearing an old chain you did not ask for. Stay here with the hands together for one more breath. Notice that the holding is shared. Notice that neither hand is doing the full work alone. That is the shape of what is happening to the inheritance in this very hour. Neither one of us bearing the full weight of breaking it, even as you sit there, suspecting you were supposed to. You did not arrive at this inherited heaviness on your own. You were taught into it across years no calendar ever logged. A father in a kitchen taught your nervous system, by his own quiet despair, that men in your family run out of hope by 45. A mother taught a younger version of you, with a sentence she did not mean cruelly, that women in your line are good at suffering and bad at receiving. A relative whose name you barely remember said something at a holiday table when you were 9 that named a curse over the next 30 years of your life. And the room let the sentence stand, and the sentence has been quietly working ever since. A great-grandparent you never met made an old vow in a moment of desperation, and the vow rolled down through generations like a small stone gathering moss until it reached your shoulders. None of those carriers were me. Some of them loved you. A few of them did not know how. All of them passed forward what had been passed to them, because no one in the line had yet been given the document I'm about to read to you. Somewhere across your formation, an idea got planted that whatever you inherited from your family is simply the shape of your life. What runs in the blood runs. That was the lesson. A family pattern is a family destiny. Addiction repeats. Abandonment repeats. Poverty repeats. Anger repeats. Women of your line all end up alone, and men of your line all end up bitter. And the most a believer can do about any of it is grit her teeth and try to be the one exception nobody really expects her to be. That is not how the line works in my country. That has never been how the line works. A small dark folder is sitting in the front of your mind right now. Your last name on the tab. The contents inside marked fixed, sealed, biologically inevitable. That folder was assembled by pencils that have never belonged to my workshop. Sincere teachers who had never witnessed a generational pattern broken assumed, therefore, that breaking was impossible, and they handed you their assumption. Louder voices weaponized the language of family curse to keep believers anxious enough to keep showing up for the next ceremony, the next offering, the next something supposed to release what my son had already released 2,000 years ago. Whichever origin, an inaccurate folder got pressed into your hand, and it has been quietly setting the ceiling of your life lower than the actual ceiling I built for you. Slide it aside. Lean it against the wall for now. Let me read you the document that overrules every line in it. A curse in my language is not a piece of bone. It is a piece of paper. And paper can be torn. A chain in my language is not welded into the wrist. It is a legal document tied around it. And documents have authors, and documents have judges. And documents can be brought into a higher court and ruled invalid by the only one whose signature carries weight all the way down to the foundation of the world. You have been measuring the inheritance by the wrong instrument. You have been holding a magnifying glass to the bloodline when the matter was always being decided in a courtroom above the bloodline. Blood carries genetics. Genetics is real. But genetics is not the highest court in your story. The highest court is the one that issued a different verdict over your file the day a cross was raised on a hill outside a city wall in a country you have never visited. What was decided that afternoon outranks everything the family before you ever signed. Settle 1 foot flat against the floor beneath your chair. Press it down a small amount, no more than the weight of a closed book. Sense how the ground takes the weight without negotiation. Floors do not check a family history before they agree to hold. Floors simply hold. That same kind of holding is happening right now, underneath the part of you that has been bracing for an inherited weight to be the last word over your life. The cross is the floor under the family line. Whatever was being passed down has been intercepted by something steadier than the line itself, and the steadier thing has been bearing your weight the entire time, even on the days you assumed you were the one keeping yourself upright. Listen now. I want to lift one sentence out of an old letter and place it in your open hand. Hear it not as a polished verse on a Sunday slide, but as ink on parchment read aloud once in a small upper room far from any famous city, to a tired group of villagers who had been pressed by louder voices into reaching backward for chains they had already been freed from. Hear what I'm saying, even before the sentence arrives. Reaching backward for familiar chains is not unique to the villagers I'm about to describe. You have done it too. You have reached for an old heaviness because that heaviness was the shape you knew. Watch what I did for them, and notice that I did the same thing for you on the same afternoon. This sentence was set down in a letter I had carried to small house churches in the hill country of Galatia. Believers there were being pressed to take up an older religious code in addition to what my son had already finished. Every dietary restriction, every feast day, every ancient mark cut into the body. They had been free for a season and were now reaching, almost without noticing, for the very chains they had been freed from, because chains were familiar and freedom was not. Instead of arguing with the louder teachers about small points of religious code, I pointed through that letter at a single wooden beam on a hill where my son had been hung between two thieves on a Friday afternoon. On that beam, every old curse that any document of law could have spoken over any life was absorbed into a single body and exterminated there. Hear the sentence now the way those tired villagers heard it for the first time, sitting on a dirt floor with the wind coming through the door, knowing they had walked back toward chains, and knowing now, finally, that there was no need. Galatians chapter 3, verse 13. Christ redeemed us from the curse of the law by becoming a curse for us. For it is written, "Cursed is everyone who is hanged on a tree." Walk through it slowly alongside me. There is more living inside this sentence than the first pass will let you see. Christ redeemed us. Look at the verb, redeemed. Past tense, completed action. Not is in the process of redeeming if you behave. Not may redeem if your faith is strong enough today. Redeemed. A transaction was finished. A price was paid. An old document on which your family curse was written was bought out of the hands of the one who held it. A receipt sits in my books for what my son spent to retrieve the deed of your life from the registry it had been filed under. That receipt does not expire. No bad week of yours and no bad week of any relative whose name shares your family tree can revoke it. From the curse of the law, hear the source of what he bought you out of. Not from your own choices. Not from your individual failings. From the curse of the law itself, the whole system by which any old document could speak any kind of binding word over any life. The curse of the law is the broad category. Your specific inherited heaviness fits inside that broad category. What he redeemed you from was the whole system that gave your family curse its legal teeth in the first place. With the system overruled, the specific case has no court to stand in. By becoming a curse for us, hold these 4 words for a beat. He became it. He did not negotiate around it. He did not soften it into a quieter version. He stepped into the place where the curse was meant to land and let it land on him instead. Picture him doing it. The son of the one who set the stars in their tracks, voluntarily walking under the weight that was supposed to crush your great-grandfather, your grandfather, your father, you, and the child you have not had yet. Picture him absorbing the weight inside his own body. Picture the chain that ran through your line snapping the moment it tried to wrap around his wrist instead of yours. For us. Read those 2 words again. Us. Not for the deserving. Not for the ones who had already cleaned themselves up. Us. The tired believers in Galatia who were reaching back toward old chains. Us. Every generation of carriers in your family who never knew the chain could be cut. Us. You, in the chair you are sitting in, with the inherited heaviness still humming at the back of your shoulders. The US of this sentence is wide enough to contain every name that ever appeared on the docket of an old family file, and it certainly contains yours. For it is written, "Cursed is everyone who is hanged on a tree." Hear the last clause. An older sentence is being reached back into to show how the trade worked. Under the ancient code, anyone hung on a tree was counted as cursed. My son chose the tree on purpose. He went to that exact posture, the one the old document categorized as accursed, so that the curse would have only one place to land on him and would be finished there. That tree was not an accident of execution. It was the venue chosen by the one who wrote the original document so that he could end the document at its own loudest word in his own son's body. As I once had it said in another letter, the record of debt that stood against you with all its legal demands was nailed to a tree and stripped of its power there. Let that quieter echo sit alongside the sentence just placed in your hand. 2 letters were sent from different rooms in different years to different audiences, and both were saying the same thing from different angles. An old document against your family was nailed up. It was emptied of its standing. It is hanging there still, drained of every claim, while the family it was written against walks free. Open your eyes a little wider now and lift them toward wherever the light in the room is coming from. A window, a lamp, the screen, any source. Just a few degrees. Hold them there. Take a slow breath in and out. Feel your shoulders softening as the neck releases its old downward set. Light has been entering rooms across this family line for a long time, and many of the carriers before you kept their eyes down out of habit, because the inherited posture was a downcast one. You do not have to keep that posture. The light has not been waiting for the family to deserve looking up. The light has been waiting for one carrier in the line to lift her face. You can be the one. The lifting itself is the breaking of an inheritance, because heads that lift toward light do not pass downcast eyes to the next generation. Lower your gaze when you are ready. The light will still be there. Return now to the question I asked at the opening of these words. Why has the inherited heaviness felt built into your bones for so long? Here's the answer. Because nobody in the carriers before you was given the language for what my son did on the tree. A grammar of family was the only grammar your line knew. Patterns repeating, generation after generation. My grammar in this courtroom is different. A curse in my court is a legal document. A legal document can be overturned. Overturning happened the afternoon he hung between the 2 thieves. And the ruling has been on the books in your favor across every year of your life so far, including the years no one in your house knew the ruling existed. A document is torn. A chain is cut. A pattern is interrupted. That interruption began the moment you started listening to a voice older than the family line. And that voice is mine. A small habit can be tucked into the ordinary hours of an ordinary week. Whenever an inherited heaviness begins humming again, a sudden flash of your father's despair surfacing in your own chest, a phrase from a grandmother's mouth trying to leave your own lips, a familiar shape of failure trying to repeat itself in your decisions. Pause where you are standing and ask yourself one quiet question. Not, why is this happening again? That question hands you back into the old folder. The question is, whose name is on the document this came from? That is the entire practice. Only the question. The answer almost always arrives on its own once the question is asked. The heaviness came from a line. That line was overruled at the cross. The carrier of it, you, is not obligated to enforce a contract that the highest court already canceled. A second beat, when there is bandwidth for it. Once the question has been asked, name out loud in whatever voice the room permits. One word. Released. Just the one. Spoken quietly into the air above your shoulders. That word does not perform a magic. That word names what is already true. The naming aligns your mouth with what my court has already written. The body learns to live under the ruling by being told, in plain speech, that the ruling exists. A third beat, gentler still for the days when even the speaking feels too large. On those days, you can simply uncurl one finger inside a closed fist. That single finger is a whole prayer. It says, I have not forgotten. It says, I am still here. It says, the chain is not going back on my wrist by my consent today. A father who has been reading the small gestures of his tired children for a long, long time will read the uncurled finger as fluently as the spoken word. There is no minimum size for a movement away from an inherited chain, a fourth beat, only for moments when the inherited heaviness is particularly loud. In those moments, place one hand on your collarbone where breath rises into the upper chest. Let it sit there for the length of 2 slow exhalations. Let a single sentence form under that hand, almost without sound. I am the one in whom this stops. Say it once. Lower the hand. That sentence is not an act of bravado. It is the simple naming of what has been operationally true since the moment my son chose the tree. You are not generating the breaking by speaking. You are agreeing, out loud, with a breaking that my court entered into the books a long time ago. Speech and ruling have begun moving in the same direction inside you. That is the whole of it. Initial passes through this practice will probably register as nothing in the interior. A first month of trying it may leave the chest unchanged. Patterns 3 generations long do not loosen inside a single afternoon, and a body trained to wear a chain mistakes the chain for a part of itself. Give it a season. Somewhere inside that season, an old flash of family heaviness will arrive and linger a little less. A few months further on, a whole afternoon will pass before you realize you forgot to reach for the old shape. A year further on, you will look back across a recent fortnight and grasp that something you used to call the way I am has been quietly leaving your body. Not because you fought it, but because you stopped enforcing a document canceled long before you were born. Should anything here be reaching an exhausted place inside you, put the word free below in a single comment. Not as a tag, but as a quiet flag staked beside a line you are no longer obligated to carry forward. Above this video, in the pinned slot, 7 brief letters already sit ready. 1 per daybreak of the week ahead, slip to your inbox as soon as a small yes opens the gate. Receive them. A direct word now to you who have been quietly afraid that the addiction in your family is a sentence written in your own blood. Hear me. Addiction in a line is a pattern. A pattern is a habit of inheritance. A habit of inheritance is exactly the kind of document my son took on the tree. What sits on your wrist is not a chain of biology. It is a chain of an old contract, and that contract was canceled. Walk out of it one small movement at a time. Walking out is the breaking. Such breaking is already underway. For whoever has been watching her own children begin to repeat the patterns she swore she would interrupt. Listen carefully. Patterns showing up in them are not proof that the breaking failed. They are the last gasp of an old document trying to keep its grip on a line that has, in fact, already been released. Your interruption is real. Such an interruption needs another generation to finish itself in the body. Keep loving the children inside that slow interruption. Their freedom is being formed inside your refusal to keep the chain on yourself. To the one of you whose father or whose mother never broke the cycle and died inside it, hear this also. The carrier before you did the best they could with a document they had not been given the tools to tear. They did not fail you on purpose. They were tired the same way you have been tired. The tearing they could not do for themselves can still be done for the line. By you, in their memory, on their behalf. The breaking flows backward in my court as well as forward. The piece of a line healed in one generation reaches, in my reckoning, even into the rest of the ones who could not heal it in their own time. To whoever is reading this from inside a body that carries an illness 3 generations of your family have carried, hear this gently. A body is real, and the illness inside it is real, and the curse over the family is not. Those are 2 different things, and the distinction matters. I am not asking you to deny what your body is doing. I'm telling you that the inherited shame around what your body is doing is not yours to keep. The illness has a medical name. The shame has a family name. The medical thing belongs to the doctor. The family name thing belongs to a torn document. Keep visiting the doctor. Set down the document. For the carrier in your line who is currently you, and who has been afraid that all this freedom talk will dissolve the moment the next hard week arrives. Listen, a ruling does not dissolve under hard weeks. A ruling holds across weather. The hard week is not a retrial. The hard week is the lower court making noise, while the higher court has not even convened a new session, because no new session is required. The original ruling stands. It has been standing across every hard week of your life so far. It will stand across the ones still ahead, and whoever is currently in a quieter season, where the inherited heaviness feels distant for once, hear this final word. That distance is not proof that the inheritance was never real. It is proof that the ruling is already operating. Honor that distance by not reaching back to verify whether the chain is still there. It is not. Keep your hand open. My hand has been holding the broken chain on the other side, and it has not closed and is not about to. Carry one quiet sentence into the lining of the ordinary week ahead of you. The chain that ran through your family ends in my hand. The hand has already let go. Murmur it at a stoplight when an old flash of the family heaviness rises. Press it gently into the soft place above your collarbone when an inherited voice tries to speak in your own mouth. Speak it into the dark when a worry about repeating an old pattern keeps you awake. Both halves of it remain true whether or not your senses confirm them in this hour. My court does not wait on your confirmation. A ruling is what it is. A release is what it is. Your line is held in a hand that is steadier than every name written across the back of the old document. When the first sign of the freedom begins reaching you, do not be startled by how quietly it shows up. Most freedoms do not announce themselves with trumpets. A pattern simply does not repeat one Tuesday. An old phrase does not leave your mouth at the moment it would have. An inherited despair does not rise in your chest at the hour it always did. Honor the small absence. Pause exactly where you are and breathe one slow exhale. Offer a small thank you under your breath, even if no other ear hears it. Such small absences are the previews of a fuller release, whose full disclosure waits in a season you have not yet stepped into. Most large freedoms surface in small absences well before they surface in obvious arrivals. Gather the small absences. They are evidence that the ruling is showing. Amen. Should today's words have reached a tired place in you, 7 brief letters are waiting inside the pinned slot just below. 1 per daybreak of the week ahead, arriving in your inbox as soon as a small yes opens the gate. Receive them. Send this video to someone in your own family line wearing an old chain without knowing it could be cut. Tap subscribe so the next word reaches your feed before another hard week does. No carrier in any family was ever meant to walk the breaking of an inheritance solo.